Hi, welcome to the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. In today's video, we're going to look at mixing vocals. Now, it's one of the most requested subjects from my subscribers, so I wanted to go through some of the processes that I would go through when mixing in standalone. Now, before we jump in, I want to point out this is not a definitive method. There is no magic preset, despite what some companies and people may have you think, that are going to make your vocals perfect. Every song is different, every vocal is different, but there are a few tips that you can apply to get your vocals in a good place when mixing. So let's jump in. So when I mix vocals, before I even start, I will do a pre-assessment. The reason why I do that is because it's very, very easy to, once you start applying loads of effects, delays, reverbs, EQs, compression, etc., to get lost and lose your direction. So you need some kind of focus. You need to know what direction that you're going in before you even start throwing effects at it. And also you need to assess the vocal to work out whether it needs to be resung, whether it needs surgical work, you know, whether there's noises in it that need to be removed. You need to look at what genre it is, what style it is, what kind of vibe that you're going for in your track, or if you're mixing for a client, what kind of vibe your client wants to go for. Does the vocal need a lot of compression because you want it to be up front in the mix and you want to reduce the dynamic range, or is it a subtle kind of ballad acoustic track where you don't want to lose those subtle nuances, so you don't want to over compress it? Does it need a lot of EQ, or is it a really, really expensive microphone where the EQ is not needed at all? Is it the lead instrument in the track? You know, vocals are not always the lead instrument. It could be the guitar's the lead instrument. It could be a synth is the lead instrument. So you need to take all those things into account before you really start considering mixing the vocal, because, you know, like I said, it's very, very easy to get lost very, very quickly. And you know, the vocals, out of all of the instruments that there is, they are, one of the instruments is going to be different, absolutely different every single time that you mix it. There's so many different elements that you have to take into account: the microphone, the room, who's singing it, what kind of mood they're in that day. You know, even if you're working with the same singer all of the time, you're not going to be able to apply the same preset and the same chain to every single performance, because it's going to be different. So there's a lot that needs to be taken into account before you even start. So what I've got here is I've got 3 separate acapellas. Also, I just want to point out that I'm not going to be mixing in context here. I'm not going to be mixing over a track. Normally I would be mixing over a track, and I would mix in context, because mixing in solo is not a great idea, because once you take it out of solo, it might not sound very good in the track. So mix in context, don't mix in solo. But I am going to mix in solo in this case because I want to focus on what processing I would use on a vocal. And if it's in context, that's going to be slightly different. And I just kind of want to show you what kind of EQ moves you can do, what kind of compression moves, reverbs, delays, that kind of thing. So I've got 3 different types of acapella here. One of them is like a spoken word type of acapella, which I'm going to apply some delays and reverbs to in a bit later on.
Yeah. You know what I like.
So R&B style spoken word. This one is kind of a BVs, harmonies type sort of vocal.
'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing.
And then finally we've got a female diva.
You treat me like a fool.
So 3 different styles there. Let's say that I'm mixing for a client or I'm mixing for myself, and I've listened to those vocals. I've made my pre-assessments, and I'm going to just jump in. I'm going to go through the moves on all 3 and showing you and explaining you exactly what I would do. So it's going to kind of be in real time, so you can stop the video and rewind, etc. if you need to. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to start with the spoken word one first. I'm going to start with
'Cause you know me,
the BV one. Now this is there's quite a lot of dynamics here. There's quite a lot of fluctuation in levels, and what I want to do is I want to level this out and really bring it to the fore of the mix.
'cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile.
You can hear this.
Oh my.
Excuse me. You can hear that there's different levels of vocals going on there. So we're going to start with some EQ, surgical EQ, and just bringing certain elements of the vocal out before I start hitting the compressors. So let's just take these compressors out for now.
'Cause you know me, you know
I'm going to tidy up the low end a little bit.
'cause you know me, 'cause you know me, 'cause you know me.
Now be very careful when you're tidying up the low end of vocals. You don't want it to affect the performance, and I see this so often in videos online where people will give you a number and say cut everything below 220, cut everything below 180, and you know, don't get into that habit. There is no magic number. Every vocal is different. It's the same with any instrument. I've said this in previous videos. Every kick drum, every snare, etc. They're all different. So you can't apply a preset number to that. You have to use your ears and decide how much you want to cut out of the low end. So don't get into the habit of applying a particular number or using a preset where everything below 180 is cut on a vocal. 180 is a pretty good number to start with as a ballpark figure, because it's going to be getting rid of any kind of low end rumble. But you have to be careful, especially with male vocals or lower register female vocals. If you go up to 180, you're going to start eating into the actual performance, and you don't want to lose any body. And that's where the body starts existing in a vocal. So use your ears, cut into the vocal so you can feel that it's starting to actually reduce the low end a little bit too much, and then roll it back. So I've found around about 140, 150.
'Cause you know me, you know I. 'Cause you know me, 'cause you know me, you know I.
That's just kind of getting rid of any low end room noise or mic rumble that there might be going on. The next thing I want to do is I want to clean up a little bit of mud that I can hear, and this is going to be around about the kind of 180 to 320 kind of area, depending on the vocal.
'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. 'Cause you know me, you know I.
So it takes a little bit of density out of the vocal there, but I know that when I compress that density is going to come back again. So I'm cleaning the vocal up before I hit the compressor, but because I know what the compression is going to do, I can probably go a little bit more than I would normally if I was not going to compress it. But also, of course, once I do start compressing it, I can tweak the EQ that I've got running before the compressor. Now I want to bring some kind of clarity out on the vocals as well. So
'cause you know me, you know I. 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. Oh my, you know that I will fall for you, fall for you. 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. Oh my.
So that's in a pretty decent place before I hit the compressor. Now with the first compressor, you see I've got two here. I've got air compressor, which is very transparent, and then I've got the opto compressor, which introduces a bit of character. My first compressor I'm going to be using, I just want to kind of start leveling things out a little bit, catching the peaks, just reducing the dynamic range on the vocal, because I want to bring it forward a little bit. And then with the second compressor, I'm going to be adding a bit of character and squashing it down a little bit more, even more, bringing it forward in the mix. So, and the good thing as well is when you're using two compressors, or you can even use three, I have actually explained this in a video before, that you're going to be, the compressor is going to be doing less work if you're stacking compressors. So using a compressor on a vocal especially, which tends to be a very dynamic instrument, you can catch the peaks with the initial compressor with fast attack, well, I'll show you the ratio in a second, fast release as well, and you're going to catch the peaks so that when you go into the second compressor and you start adding character to the vocal, that compressor's not going to have to do as much work. And especially with something like an opto compressor that's not known for its fast attack, not really known for catching peaks very well, I'm using the air compressor first to catch the peaks. Let's just take this one off for the moment.
'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile.
So fast attack, I'm thinking of it kind of being like a 1176 FET compressor. Fast attack, fast release.
'Cause you know me, you know I. 'Cause you know me, you know I. 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile.
You see, already by reducing the dynamic range, I'm leveling the vocal out. I mean, I'm doing a little bit more than just catching the peaks there. I am actually starting to, compress the vocal to a point where you can hear compression. So I'm probably going to take that back just a little bit so that I can use a second compressor to more kind of get that upfront feeling.
'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. Oh my, you know that I will fall for you, fall for you. 'Cause you know me, you know I. 'Cause you know me, you know I.
So
I got a thing.
I'll drop it in and out of bypass. When the compressor's not on, you'll hear there are kind of fluctuations in level, and I want to reduce that. So when I bring the compressor in, you'll hear that it just levels it out. But I'm not smashing it. I don't really want to smash it. I might have even gone down a little bit more in the ratio, but we'll leave it at 3 for now. So we're bringing it really up front. So I'll drop it in and out of bypass and just listen to the subtleties between the dynamic range from being kind of fluctuating a little bit, maybe from the way that the singer was performing or the singers were performing, and I'm getting rid of that. I'm getting rid of that mic movement or fluctuation in volume and just reducing the dynamic range and leveling it out a little bit.
'Cause you know me, you know I. 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. Oh my, you know that I will fall for you, fall for you.
So with the second compressor, I want to add a little bit of character. So I'm going to leave the release and the attack pretty mild. Maybe take that up a little bit and maybe bring this down a little bit. Ratio, we'll leave it there for now, and then I'm going to hit it quite hard.
'Cause you know me, you know I. 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 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. Oh my, you know that I will fall for you, fall for you.
So you can hear that what I've done is I've got that real kind of pop sound where everything is, I don't want to say robotic, but that's kind of the sound that people like in pop stuff at the moment, or in R&B or trap, any kind of genres like that. They want it balanced out and upfront, because when it's played on the radio, you want to hear the vocals. It's a pop song. It needs to be radio ready. So I want the vocals to be squashed almost without any kind of dynamics at all. That's the kind of vibe that I've gone for on this vocal, and they're the decisions that you make right at the very, very start. Is it that kind of vocal? This kind of treatment is going to sound terrible if I'm working on a ballad or on some jazz or opera or something like that. I mean, if you compressed a jazz vocal in this way, it would sound awful, because you're getting rid of any of the dynamics in the vocal. But with kind of pop stuff and upfront stuff, club stuff, dance stuff, you want the vocal to be quite static in the mix, and you want it to be upfront. You want to be able to hear it. So,
'cause you know me, you know I. 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. Oh my, you know that I will fall for you, fall for you. 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. Oh my, you know that I will fall for you, fall for you. 'Cause you know me, 'cause you know me, you know I.
So it's going to be difficult for me to get the levels exactly right, but focus on the muddiness, the clarity, the fluctuation in volume when I bring it in and out of bypass.
'Cause you know me, you know I. 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile. 'Cause you know me, you know I. 'Cause you know me, you know I I got a thing for that laugh and smile. 'Cause you know me, you know I got a thing for that laugh and smile.
Okay, so with the Diva style vocal,
You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do.
it's a pretty good recording. It needs a little bit of work in the EQ. We're going to just roll off.
You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do.
So that's just cleaning up the low ends just a little bit. And again, there's some kind of nasally and some little bit of mud going on.
You treat me like a fool. 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 I don't know what to do. All the signs out there. If you want it, baby, I'm there. You treat me like a fool. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. All the signs out there. If you want it, baby, I'm there. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do.
Now, I have a suspicion that this vocal was compressed when it was recorded because she's quite level. I can hear fluctuations in her voice in the actual performance, but the levels are still pretty static. So it's well recorded. I'd be well happy if I was given this as a vocal to work with from a client because yeah, it's well recorded. It doesn't need an awful lot of surgery. But again, you know, because of the style of vocal it is, big diva vocal, I want to go for that upfront kind of sound. So I'm going to get rid of the peaks a little bit again with the air compressor and then add some real character with the opto.
You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. You treat me like a fool. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do.
So you can hear, I'll let it play for a bit longer so you can compare it better, but what I've done is I've injected some life into it. It was a great vocal to start with, like I said, but when you really notice when I take it out of bypass, whilst it's still kind of static, it's a good recording, but by adding the EQ and the compression, I'm injecting a bit of life and a bit of punch into it by balancing the attack and the release settings on the air compressor and then going into opto. Taking the release back, if you notice it actually releases a bit quicker on this one than the previous vocal because she's quite dynamic. Optos are not known for their quick release and attack settings, but the opto in the MPC is not really like any opto that I've used before, and you can actually get quite a nice punch from it. If you keep the knee down low and a ratio around about 5, 6, 7, and you push the threshold a little bit. Again, it's knowing your compressors, it's knowing what your plugins can do. So I've just kind of wanted to inject some life into it. So I'm going to play it with and without so you can hear it. We'll go without first, let your ears kind of get used to the little kind of almost muffledness and not as much kind of life in the vocal.
You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. All the signs out there. If you want it, baby, I'm there. You treat me like a fool. You treat me like a fool.
And you can also hear that there was some very natural saturation on the performance, and the use of compression, the bringing the clarity out, I've kind of brought that saturation out, which is really, really nice. So I haven't actually added any saturation at all. Compressor Opto might be adding a little bit of character because it does add a little bit of saturation, I think. I actually touched on that in a compression video if you want to check that out. There might be some character being added by the PEQ as well, because that's kind of like a Neve style. I'm not sure what Akai have done, whether they've actually added any saturation in there, but it sounds to me definitely like I'm bringing out a little bit of saturation. But I think that that is more from the performance than actually the process that I've done. So let's say now we've got our vocals in the right place with EQ and with compression, and we just want to add some reverb and some delays. Pretty classic thing to do with vocals. In the MPC, I will do that on returns. So say for instance, in this case, on return 1, I've got air reverb, and on return 2, I've got air delay. Let's go with the reverb first with this vocal. So it's going to be a creative decision. Am I adding massive reverbs like in a ballad, or is it just going to be a reverb that's going to create some space? Because bear in mind, a lot of vocals are going to be recorded in a vocal booth, so there's not going to be any kind of natural reverb there. In this case, I do want to add some natural reverb. It's very flat. I've done what I wanted to do with the EQ and compression, but I just want to put her in a space, and I use reverb a lot for that. Putting people in a space, putting an instrument in a space. I'm not one for big reverbs myself personally, but that's not to say that you can't do that, but I'm showing you how I would do things. So in this case, I've got the reverb set up on the return. I've got an EQ running after it. The reason for that is that reverbs are quite notorious for adding a bit more mud and a bit more, you know, too much top end, that kind of thing. You don't need the top end on a reverb. You don't need the low end on a reverb in this case. So what I've done is with Air Power EQ, I rolled off the low end up to 600 Hertz and I rolled off the top end at 10 kilohertz. That's not my invention. It's a pretty classic thing that a lot of engineers do. It's called the Abbey Road reverb trick, I believe, and it's something that I tend to do on vocals because I don't want any low end build up with the reverb. So that's why I've done that. So then if I go into pad mix, here I have her vocal.
You treat me like a fool. You treat me like a fool.
Now remember, the point of this with the reverb is I just want to put her in a space. I don't really want it to be noticeable, which is why I've used a kind of small studio. It's got like about a 2-second reverb on it. We'll have a look in a second. But I just really want to put her in a space. I don't really want the reverb to be heard. But the strange thing is when you use reverb like this, and you don't notice it, you do notice it when you take it out. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's just set it up.
You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do.
So it's very subtle. And then if we were to go into the reverb here, let's just have a look how I've got the reverb set up. As you can see, yeah, so I've started off with a small studio as the preset, and then I've just tweaked it. I've given it a little bit of width to give the vocal some width. As you can see, it's quite short, smaller room size. There's no pre-delay on it because I want to give the impression that she's just in a space, not in a massive hall or anything. But pre-delay can be added. You know, it's creative. You can do what you want. Because it's return, I've got it on 100% mix. I don't need to have it. If I had it set up as an insert, then I might have it on 50% or whatever. But because it's a return, I've got it on 100%. So I'm going to play it with the reverb set up. And as I said, it's very, very subtle. I'm just creating a space. When I drop it out, that's when you'll notice it.
You treat me like a fool. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. All the signs out there. If you want it, baby, I'm there. You treat me like a fool. treat me like a fool.
So you can hear that I've just added some subtle space, and I know that in the mix that will make her sound a lot more natural and a lot less like she's recording in a vocal booth. The next thing I would do is add some, this would be a creative decision, add some delay in there. So if we go into, let's be sent to run it, yep, there we go. So
You treat me like a fool. I don't.
but we don't want it, again, we want it to be quite subtle.
You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. All the signs out there. If you want it, baby, I'm there. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. All the signs out there. If you want it, baby, I'm there. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do. You treat me like a fool. I don't know what to do.
So you hear it just gives it that pro kind of finishing touch, really, doesn't it? You know, when you add delay and reverb, it just gives it a bit more polish. And, you know, I mean, I've gone for a quarter timing there because of the type of track that it is. If I was doing a ballad, I might have gone for half. Again, it's kind of a creative decision. I'm going to do a separate video on delays and reverbs, which will explain these a lot more. But basically, if I'm just to give you an idea of what I've done here, obviously I've got sync on so that the delay is going to be in time with the track. The feedback is not too much because I don't want the tail going on for absolutely ages. I just kind of want it just to kind of fill some space. And the time I've gone for, like I said, it would be quarter.
You treat me like a fool.
I could go for an eighth, I guess.
You treat me like a fool.
But because of the speed of the vocal and the track, which I think was kind of around about 120 BPM, an 8 in that case is probably going to almost sound like a slapback. So again, it would be a good way to create some space. But I want that kind of polished pop kind of sound. So I would go for a quarter in this case, maybe a half depending on the track. We'll stick with quarter again because it's a return. I've gone for 100% mix, and you know you have these other controls here. Like I said, I'm going to explain these in a different video, but just giving a little bit of width and stuff. So you know, with reverbs and delays, it's about you have to make a creative decision, I guess. And again, you do this in your assessment, or you'll do it in the track. You listen to the vocal that you've got. Does it need some space? Does it need to be put in a space? And of course, as well with delays and reverbs, they can be automated. They don't have to be on all of the time. You can automate. Another thing, again, like I explained here, I have the high pass and low pass and 610K just to kind of get rid of any mud that the delay might be introducing. And any kind of clashing frequencies that you might have in that area, but you know, you don't have to use those numbers. They're just numbers that I start with, and then I'll dial those in once I actually get into the actual mix of the track. So there you have it. I did intend on this being a short video, but as you can see, once you get into it, you know, and vocals are important as well. You know, so there's so much more that I could have talked about with the EQ, with the compression, but I just really kind of wanted to do an outline on how I would mix vocals in the MPC, what kind of chain that I would use in terms of doing surgical EQ, different styles of compression, depending on the genre, the style, how I would then add some character with EQ. I didn't really get too much into delay and reverb. I could have quite easily have talked about that for hours. I am actually going to do that in another video. They're creative things, aren't they? Delay and reverb. So, you know, there's so much more that you can get into. And, you know, saturation, distortion, effects, harmonizing effects, adding width to background vocals. I mean, it really is a video that could be 2 or 3 hours long just on vocals, just on lead vocals alone. That's not even touching on BVs. But you know, a lot of it is creative decisions, and I wanted to just kind of do an outline video on how I would mix a lead vocal, for instance, in the MPC, just to kind of give you some inspiration. As I said, I will share the vocal chain as a preset so that you can use that if you like, and you can tweak it, change it around. And you know, and I hope there's some inspiration there with the reverb and delays, which I've showed you as well. But you know, it's endless what you can do. You know, don't think that that is a preset for a vocal. It's a decent starting point, but you know, the one thing that I really stress with my students or people that I tutor online is, especially with vocals, is making that pre-assessment, making decisions early on where you want the vocal to end up, how you want it to sound at the end, because those pre-assessments are important, because it is so easy to get lost very, very quickly with all the different plugins that you've got. And you know, you might not be working with one lead vocal. You know, a lot of tracks that I get sent from clients now can have 30 different layers of vocals, background vocals, lead vocals, harmonized vocals. You know, so with all of that coming into your head, it can just be so overwhelming if you don't make those pre-assessments. If you make the pre-assessments, where do I want the vocal to go? What genre is it? Do I need to do any surgery? Is it badly recorded? Can it be re-recorded? You know, we don't all have the luxury of having our vocals recorded in Grammy-winning studios. So often it does need it does need surgery, it does need work doing on it, it does need chopping and changing around. Make all those decisions early on, and you're not going to get in a mess later on when you're actually doing the important parts of the mixing. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more mixing, mastering and MPC tutorials and reviews. This is the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. Till next time.